Hello, hi everyone. This is Gabby from mythesiscoach.com, and today I want to talk about the difference between a thesis proposal and a thesis. So I get asked this a lot, and I find in order to understand the difference between these documents, you got to think, when do they come in the thesis process? So a thesis proposal is written quite early on, perhaps after a few months of research, and in your proposal you are justifying to the reader why yours is a doable, valuable, and interesting thesis topic. So, in the thesis proposal, you have an introduction where you give an outline of your project. You have a literature review where you show what other people have said about the topic which you are researching. And then you have a proposed methodology section where you say, well, here's what I want to do to collect my data. And it normally ends with some sort of project plan or project proposal or timeline where you outline, okay, this is how long it's going to take me to do the full thesis, including gathering my data, analyzing my data, writing up the different chapters. Often people put this in the form of a Gantt chart so that they can say, here, this is my plan going forward. And then your supervisor will read that and think, yeah, okay, this topic's looking great, totally doable. They'll pass your proposal and you can start the proper thesis. Or else they'll say, oh, looking a bit, there are a couple of gaps here, go off and work on it. And you'll do that and you'll resubmit. I find the proposal a really important part. For my PhD, I ended up going back to that proposal again and again while I was writing my full thesis. In fact, right up to the end. So it's definitely worth putting time and effort into that proposal as well. So that's the thesis proposal. In the thesis itself, you are now saying, here's my project. Your introduction in the thesis is like, here's what my project is about. The literature review is often very similar. You can use what you put in your proposal, but it's often a bit further developed because it's a bit longer. You move on to your methodology. And this time, whereas in the proposal you were saying, here's what I'm going to do, in the thesis, you're like, here's what I did. Because the idea is by the time you write it up, you will have already done that stuff. And then they get a bit different because your thesis then goes on to share the results. So what is it that you found out from gathering your data? The discussion where you relate the data back to the literature and say like, okay, well, here's what I found, here's what other people have said, what can that mean? So that's your discussion chapter. And it normally ends with the conclusions and recommendations chapter when you weigh those two things up. So you can see thesis proposal comes quite early on, is really setting up and saying, here's my plan for what I'm going to do. What do you think about it? Is it okay? And the thesis itself is like, okay, here's what I did. Here's what I found. Here's the point of it all. And that is the difference between a proposal and a thesis. Visit www.mythesiscoach.com for more about the difference between various sections in the thesis and more thesis writing tips and ideas. Cheers.